Good morning to all of you. I welcome you to this session on RDBMS. In today's session, I'll be discussing subqueries with you, and then I'll be discussing the concept of PL/SQL, that is the programming aspect of SQL. So let's begin. Now let's understand what's a subquery. Now suppose you want to write a query to find out who earns a salary greater than Smith's salary, right? So Smith is an employee in the M table, and I want to write a query to find who earns a salary greater than Smith's salary. So to solve this particular problem, we need two queries, right? One is to find how much Smith earns, and the second one is to find who earns more than that amount, right? So we can solve this particular problem by combining the two queries and placing one query inside the other query. All right. And the inner query is known as a subquery, which returns a value that can be used by the outer query or the main query. So see the nomenclature. Inner query or subquery is executed first. It returns a value which is used by the outer query, or which we also call as the main query, right? So using a subquery, it's equivalent to performing two sequential queries and using the result of the first query as a search value in the second query, right? So let me just start an Oracle session for you, SQL session here. Just connect as the user spot. Some environmental settings here. Then I can describe these two tables just so that you are in sync with this. Then if I display values here, so if I just switch to the query here, you can see I want to write a query to find who earns a salary greater than Smith's salary, right? So let's see the Smith salary. Here is Smith. The salary is 800, right? So you can see many people like Ellen, Ward, Jones, so many people are there who earn more than Smith. But how to write this thing? Okay, so we require two queries for this. First, we'll find how much Smith earns. Okay, so that would return a value of 800, as you can see here, right? And then the other query will find who earns more than that amount. So there's a long list for that, as you can see. All these people earn more than Smith, right? Almost everybody earns more than Smith. Okay, so let's see how we can write this. So I'll first write here. Like this is the query. Okay, so obviously this will return 800. Then I should use this value. I should use something like select okay, and obviously I require names only, so I can just write here ename. Right. So these are all the people who earn more than Smith. So this is what was required when we started our discussion today on subqueries. Now, how to write it? Okay, let's watch this syntax. Okay, so this is the subquery syntax. Okay, so you write something like select list from table name. This is the output that you desire. Okay, where you equate some expression and operator. And then this is the inner query, select list from table. Okay, right? So remember that whatever expression you write here, where EXPR, that should be here in the select list. Okay, that should match. Okay, so we'll see how we need to write it. And then the subquery, this is the subquery or the inner query. It executes first before the main or the outer query, and its result is given to the outer query. So the result of the subquery is used by the main query, right? So let's write this query here. So I'll write here select ename from M where we are looking for salary of all these people. We want to display all the e-names whose salary is greater than that of Smith. So you can write something like this, and then you can write here, select sal from M, where e-name is Smith. You can see this is the inner query. This is the subquery, right? This is the subquery. Its result is fed to this outer query or the main query, right? It's fed to the main query. What I'm suggesting here is, like, whatever column is here where sal, okay, the same should appear in this select statement, right? Okay, so if you just run it, you will get all these 13 rows. Just to make it more clear, let's pick up a value. Let's pick up like whose salary is more than that of Jones. Okay, let's make this condition now. We want to see all the employee names who earn more than Jones, right? So Jones is earning 2975. So all the values more than that are 3000 and 5000 and 3000. That is, we should get an output as Scott, King, and Ford. Okay, so let me write that query again. So I can write here Jones. So I'll get 3 rows as the output, that is Scott, King, and Ford. So this is the idea behind subquery, right? Okay. Then we can have another query here, like we can write here, display all employees who belong to the department of Miller. Okay. So who belong to the department of Miller. So first we need to find the department to which Miller belongs. So Miller belongs to department number 10. So basically we are asking to display all employees who belong to department number 10. But this statement, department number 10, is not mentioned explicitly, right? So we must find out first the department to which Miller belongs and provide this information to the outer query, right? So I'm going to write this query now. So I'll write here, select, say, emp number and ename from M. So here I must equate on department number. So where department number, right? I can write here in, okay, or I can write here equal to, right? So and in the inner query I can write select department number from M, where ename is Miller, right? So how many rows would return? You can just have a look. Miller belongs to department number 10. So we'll have one output as King, another one as Clark. That's it. So Clark, King, and Miller would be the output, right? So all these people, the Clark, King, they belong to the department to which the Miller belongs. So see the query here and see the usage of the operators that I've used in these queries, in the subqueries. One I have used equal to here, then I've used greater than here. Okay, so these are known as single row subquery operators. Okay, single row subquery operators, because in this case the subquery on the right hand side would return singular values. Okay, there won't be like we are equating with some single values, right? That's why we use these operators, right? So let's have a look here. Okay, now these are the guidelines for writing subqueries. That is, number one, you should enclose your subqueries in parentheses. So we have already seen that here. Okay, we have enclosed the subquery in parentheses, right? Then place the subqueries on the right side of the comparison condition. We have done that. This is the comparison condition, right? And the order by clause is not needed unless you're performing top-N analysis. Okay, so usually we don't use the order by clause in the subquery. And what is top-N analysis, we'll discuss in our subsequent sections. Then use single row operators with single row subqueries and use multiple row operators with multiple row subqueries, right? So you see both these subqueries here are returning single values. We get a value of 800 here, or whatever value of the salary of Jones is. And here also we get department number 10. So if you are having a single row subquery, you should use single row subquery operator. Okay, I'll just discuss the list with you. And then will be, if we are using subqueries which is returning multiple rows, then these equal to greater than, they do not work, then we need to work with multiple row subquery operators. Okay, remember this condition. Use single row operators with single row subqueries and multiple row operators with multiple row subqueries, right? Have a look here. The single row subqueries, they return only one row. Okay, so the subquery here, this subquery, right, and this subquery is a single row subquery because they're returning a single value. And there we should use these operators, single row comparison operators, equal to, greater than, equal to, less than, equal to, and not equal to. Kindly keep this thing in mind. And when we are using multiple row subqueries, obviously the subquery would be returning more than one row. In that case, we are supposed to use these multiple row comparison operators. So they are in, any, and all. Okay, so we'll be discussing these in our subsequent sections. Today, we will just be having some awareness about the subqueries, and complex queries we'll be writing in our subsequent lab sessions, right? So kindly keep in mind that the multiple row comparison operators are in, any, and all, right? So let's now pick up a query. Okay, let's use a group function in a subquery. Okay, so I can write here a query like display the employees whose salary is greater than average salary of department number 10, right? So some query like this. Okay, so let's try to write this query now. So we need to select, say, ename from M, where salary, okay, greater than, we can write here, select average salary from M, okay, group by department number, okay, and where we can write here, where department number equal to 10, right? So these people are having greater salaries than the average salary for department number 10. Just see how we have used it here. This is the aggregate function that we have used, and this is the grouping. So grouping would be done. So we'll have three groups, 10, 20, and 30. But this where would just pick up, grouping would be just made on department number 10. Right? So this way you can write these subqueries. Okay. Let me try another subquery with you in which we can pick up the multiple row subquery operators. Okay. Let's try this query. Display employee details for employees belonging to departments of, just check. Okay, we can just let me just form a query first. So let's now write a query which will exhibit the behavior of multiple row subquery operators. Okay, so suppose I want to display all employees whose job is same as the job of people, of employees in departments 10 and 20, right? So if I write this query like this, say select name from M, where I would write here job. I'll start with writing equal to here, right? And I'll write here select job from M, where department number equal to 10 or department number equal to 20. If I write it like this, then you understand this thing that this query here is returning multiple rows. So it is a multiple row subquery, right? It cannot work with a single row subquery operator. Okay, we need to use this multiple row subquery comparison operators or multiple row subquery operators, right? So that is the problem here. So how do I rectify it? I should use in here so that we can have a comparison of multiple values. So now if I run this, obviously I get the desired output. I can also write here, instead of this OR operator, I can use this also here, right? A shorter way of writing. It's not accepting in here. Yeah, I think it should be like this. Okay. So instead of the OR operator, okay, instead of writing OR, because if there are multiple comparisons, then you need to write a long query using or AND. Then you can use this in operator in the subquery also. Important is, if your subquery is a multiple row subquery, you require a multiple row operator, right? Multiple row subquery operator. So this is like what a subquery is and what sort of operators are used for different types of subqueries, right? So next I'm going to discuss the PL/SQL with you, right? So PL/SQL I'm going to discuss. So we say that the PL/SQL is the procedural extension to the non-procedural SQL. So when we are talking of SQL, we simply say that SQL is non-procedural, whereas PL/SQL is procedural. Okay, and what it does is it combines the data manipulation power of SQL and procedural power of standard procedural languages, like you do programming in your standard languages, C, C++, Java. It gives you that support along with the data manipulation power of SQL. Okay, so if I talk of advantages of PL/SQL, the first advantage, of course, is a support for SQL, right? The first advantage is support for SQL. The second one is it's a block structured programming language. Okay, so it is a block structured programming language. We write blocks for our programming, and it has got a higher productivity, better performance, integration. It has got good control structures. The modular approach that we see in functions in various languages, that modularity is there. Okay, and portability is also there. Okay, so that is some theoretical aspect for your PL/SQL. Now, what does PL/SQL? We say that PL/SQL has got a block structure. Okay, so the PL/SQL block can be of two types. So let's begin our discussion on this. PL/SQL block can be of two types. Right, we can have number one, an anonymous block. And number two is known as a subprogram. Okay, so two things are there in PL/SQL. Remember, two types of blocks can exist in PL/SQL. The first one is the anonymous block. Okay, and the second one is a subprogram. Right. So we'll start our discussion with the anonymous block. Okay. So let's see what an anonymous block looks like. Okay. So I'll just use this block. So if I talk of PL/SQL anonymous block, it looks like this. Like this. Okay. So it has got four sections. There is a declare section, there is a begin section, there is an exception section, and there is end. Four things are there. Okay. So this is the structure of a PL/SQL anonymous block. This is a structure of PL/SQL anonymous block, right? This is the structure. Okay. You can see it on screen here. This is how a PL/SQL anonymous block looks like. This is how we write it. And obviously in the declare section, we would be declaring variables. Okay, kindly note In the declare section, we'll be declaring variables, or we will be declaring cursors, a concept which we learn soon. In the begin section, obviously we write the executable statements. And in the exception section, like in any other programming language, whenever there is some runtime error, then the control would jump to this exception section, and where we would be writing some exception handling blocks. Okay, so remember this thing. So now if we talk of like what is the minimum that you write as a program for a PLSQL anonymous block, that would be simply a begin and exception. We can omit this. Okay, sorry, a begin and an end, right? We can omit this. We can omit the declare section. We can omit the exception section also. That means we can write a minimum PLSQL anonymous block with the words begin and end. That is mandatory. This declare and exception sections are optional. You may write them if you require, or you can skip them also. Okay, so this is about the PLSQL anonymous block, right? So let's take an example now. And finally note these things because you'll be using this a lot in your lab sessions, how to write this program and how to save it, right? So we do something like we write here ed, right? Then give some name here, say A1. So I am writing a PLSQL block and I'm giving the name to it as A1, right? So you can see the name on top, A1.SQL, right? So I can write here declare, okay? Then I can write begin. So this would be the look. And while writing PLSQL code, remember, you must end it with a semicolon. Like while we were doing SQL, I told you, don't put a semicolon when you are writing in the editor. It gives an error. But while you are writing the PLSQL block, you must end it with a semicolon here, right? So I'll just write here, say, I'll use one statement. You can just note it down. This is the equivalent of your print statement in other languages. Like this. Okay. And I can omit this. That's it. Okay. Just the first program. Begin and end, I'm writing DBMS underscore output dot put underscore line. So this DBMS underscore output is a package. Okay, what are packages we'll learn soon is a package, and this put underscore line is a method, is a function of that package. Okay, and the idea is that whatever you write here in this DBMS underscore output dot put underscore line, it would be printed as such if it is a text. If it is a variable, its value would be printed, right? So you can just write here, for reference that this is equivalent to a printf or a cout statement, right? Of C, C++ respectively, right? So how to save it? You can do the usual, mouse sort of thing, but I would say just press Alt F and then X, okay? And then click on this. So now your whatever you wrote has been saved in A1. So two things you can do to execute it. Either you can first list it on screen, like I'm going to do it, say get A1. So get A1 will list it. Got it? This is one way of executing your PLSQL code. Open your script file with the get command, like get A1, and then use a slash to run it. And it says PLSQL procedure successfully completed, but no output is there. Okay. So if you want that the output of this package and this method should be directed towards the screen, you need to make an environmental setting here with the command as set server output on. Remember this. Once each session of your SQL, the moment you start your SQL session, you write set server output on, and that's it. This is a setting. So now if you run your code here, okay, then it will display the output as hello world. You can see here. Okay, right, and this is one way. Okay, so that is getting your script file would display the contents of the script file on screen, and slash would execute it, right? And if you don't want to display, simply execute it. You can write here @ and then your file name @A1. This is if you want to execute your script without listing it on the screen, right? And then you can put a slash to run. Understood? Okay, let's see another way if we can use it with start also. Say start A1. okay, and then a slash. So I've told you three ways. First is get script file name. It would list the file on the screen, then use a slash to run it, right? Then if you don't want to list the script file, you just want to execute it, use either @ file name or start file name, right? And followed by a slash to execute. Okay, so this is about your PLSQL block, how you can write a minimum. Remember, this is equivalent to this DBMS underscore output dot put underscore line. This is equivalent to your print statement. Okay, and to activate this once in a session, you must write this environmental setting, set server output on, right? Okay, let's now go with another this thing program here. Say, okay, I'll write another program, and here I will write a comment for you. Say to print sum of two numbers. This script I want to write, but I may warn you that this is not the type of programming that we want in PLSQL. Just to put you on track, just to acquaint yourself with the commands of PLSQL, the working of PLSQL, I'm just writing these simple programs. But this is not the idea of PLSQL programming, which we'll learn obviously in our later sessions. So if you need to give a single line comment, use 2 hyphens, right? A multiple line comments with a slash, star, star, slash sort of thing. Like this, okay? Give some message here and this end it. These are 2 comments, okay? This is a single line comment to print sum of 2 numbers, which begins with 2 hyphens, and a multiple line comment which begins with a slash star and ends with a slash star, star slash, right? I hope this is clear. And then in the declare section, how to declare the variables. You can declare variable like variable name followed by its data type. So data types, we have just learned a few right now. We can learn more, okay? And then I can write C number, right? Along with the type data type here, you can also initialize the values, okay? The initialization, you know, the assignment operator here in PLSQL is colon equal, okay? So I can write like equal to this, colon equal to, remember, okay? And then in the begin, I can write something like C colon equal to A plus B. This is C is equal to A plus B. The syntax is colon equal to, right? And then you can print here the value of C with a message, of course. The message and the variable is concatenated with the pipe symbol. Kindly have a look at this program, right? See the various parts. A single line comment beginning with the double hyphen, multiple line comment beginning with a slash star and star slash. So whatever you write between this and this is not executed by the compiler, is simply a comment that you can write, okay? And then you use the declare, see the declaration, variable name, data type. If you want to initialize it here itself, then colon equal to, so your assignment operator is colon equal to. Then you've used one statement here, C is colon equal to A plus B, and then you printed the value of C. See how this thing is done. The message is enclosed in single quotes, right? And to join the value, you use this double pipe, okay? And then let's save it. Okay, let me just get the value here and let me run it. Okay, so you can see sum is 30, right? So many things I've told you in this, how to give the comments, multiple line comments, single line comments, then how to declare variables and initialize them at that point only, and then how to use some statements and how to use the print statement, right? So let's open this file again. I'll open this file again, right? And I'll input the values now. Instead of assigning the values, I'll input the values. That is done with this ampersand operator, right? Let's see the effect of this. Kindly keep on noting so many things I'm telling you in a short period of time. That would make the basis of your programming actually, right? PLSQL programming. So this is equivalent to C in A. This is equivalent to C in B, right? And with this ampersand, a prompt will automatically come. A prompt would be like, it would be starting with enter the value for. Okay, this prompt would be automatically there. Once you use this ampersand a, so it will prompt you enter the value for, followed by whatever name you write here. You've written a here, so it will come like enter the value for a. This prompt would come on screen. Okay, so let's see whether it runs or gives us some problem. Right, enter the value for a, enter the value for b. So sum is 34. Now, while you are doing this, while you are using ampersand, while you are giving the input from the keyboard, it verifies whatever you are doing. So it verifies that you wrote this command and it substituted the value like this, whatever you entered on this. So once again, I'll open it here. I'll just remove this thing from here. Right. Going to run it again. Kindly note. So these prompts are there, old and new like this. So if you're not interested in this verification, okay, if you don't want this verification, use a environmental setting, set verify off. Okay. Now if you run it, I'll run it the longer way. First I'll list. Okay. Now if you run it, see I've used here set verify off. So now if you run it, it would be like this, like the way you want. You don't want verification. Now this message here is coming here. Okay, we can turn this off also. I think if we can use set what is that, confirm. I need to check that actually. Some setting out here is like if you don't want this the confirmation at the end. Okay, so I'll tell you what that setting is, but right now you've seen one good program that we have written here. Okay, the comments part is there, then the declaration is there. Declaration you can initialize here also, you can initialize here also. So I could have written it like this also, wouldn't have made any change, right? And then when I'm inputting, so I can do like this. Okay, so if I write here num, okay, kindly note this thing. If I write here num and I write here num2 and write here num1, right? So if I just run it, it will give you the prompt as num1 and num2. So whatever you write after this ampersand, that comes in the prompt automatically preceded by enter value for, right? And on the left hand side is obviously your variables, right? So that's all for today's session. In today's session, we have learned about the subqueries, the single row subqueries and the multiple row subqueries. And we had an introduction to PL/SQL programming, like how we can declare variables, how we can write some executable statements, how we can execute our PL/SQL code. And in my next session, I'll be discussing more on PL/SQL. Till that time, keep watching my videos. Thank you very much.